Hello and welcome back to the channel. Amber here, joined again by Laura, talking episode 3, House of the Dragon, The Burning Mill. We've got highs, we've got lows, we've got Scooby-Doo secret missions. This episode is all over the place. So Laura.
Yeah. I'm trying not to laugh about Scooby-Doo secret missions.
What are some of your highs and lows with this episode, and how are you feeling with this one in terms of the others?
So I would say one of my highest points was really rooting for Baela to barbecue crispy Cole on that open field. I gotta tell you, I really enjoyed the man in the first scene, the Blackwood man who was like, "You're a craven." I love that calling somebody craven is like the equivalent to the modern day term, "You're a bitch."
You're a punk ass bitch.
Exactly. That's basically what he said. And then look, like hundreds of people died in the wake of that.
Yeah, for one, I really liked that exchange between these characters, and I love, love, love when a show or a book can bring you in a new environment where you know no one, you have no experience with any of these characters, no background, and you're immediately invested. And it's hard to do, and it works really good in this scene.
So, like, my one other high for the episode was the Game of Thrones Easter egg part where they're taking the eggs away from Dragonstone, and those are the eggs that'll later become Daenerys dragons, correct?
Yeah,
because
that was so good.
It was. Isn't one like lost to it being stolen or sold or something? Because there are 4 eggs
I think
there.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I would say that my lows were... Oh man, I have so many highs for this episode because meeting another awesome member of the Strong family, top tier.
10 out of 10.
Right. I would say my lows are watching, like, I don't know if I actually even have any for this episode. It might be my favorite one so far. The only low would actually be that Crispy Cole didn't die.
He's still alive.
I'm praying on his downfall. Praying on it.
Oh, God. I'm with you on all of your highs. I loved Harrenhal. I loved this decrepit, wet, dripping, like, shambles of a castle. And I love how, like, they spent a little bit of extra time of Daemon in, like, stealth mode, just kind of, like, creeping around in there. And then he opens the door. And Simon Strong's like, yeah, okay, like, keys are in the ignition. You can have it.
Right.
It's yours.
Like, he rolls up on Harrenhal on a living nuclear weapon. And then he's still disappointed that he doesn't get to kill anybody.
Yes.
Like, he makes such a scene about not killing someone.
Yeah, I think that's the highlight of Daemon is, he's awful, he's terrible, he's not a good person, but in terms of, like, if you're looking at it in, like, a team aspect, it's like, yeah, he's a bastard, but he's our bastard. Like, he's the one that you can send in to do the dirty work as a fixer, and he has no, like, moral,
quandaries.
Status quo. Yeah, he's just like, all right, let's do this. And in that aspect, Daemon is pretty interesting, but I mean, he's terrible.
One of my favorite things about Daemon is his meme quality.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
He's quickly becoming one of my favorite characters solely because of how, like, easy it is to put him in really hilarious memes.
It's the cloak action for me.
Absolutely.
As soon as he puts on that cloak, he's in stealth mode, about to do something sneaky and awful. But I think with Harrenhal, like you said, like, going back to spending time with one of the Strongs, Simon Strong, I feel like the majority of the Strongs have some intelligence and brains there. Where, like, this dude, he was not going to put up a fight. He knows Daemon's there with the dragon. He's not even hesitant about being like, castle's yours, take it,
What
have some peas.
like what's he gonna do? Or him and
Yeah.
like the other 15 people there gonna fight Daemon and Syraxes?
Yeah, and I think
Like,
it's just his demeanor too, where like the way he presented everything, just like right there, as soon as Damon opens the door, really disarmed Damon in a really like comical way, but also in a way where like Damon couldn't fight or like hurt anyone because it was just like, ah, welcome, we've been waiting, like come on in, step on down. You're the next contestant on Who Wants to Own This Haunted Shitty Castle.
right? I do enjoy how he was like, no red currant for the venison. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. And then too, like we've got this whole dream sequence type thing with Damon. I don't know, like it went horror movie real quick with Harrenhal, but I think for me, when talking about the show as a whole, like season one versus season two is so much better in the aspect of like not being stuck in King's Landing. Well, at least like the castle in King's Landing and Dragonstone. And like bringing in Harrenhal, bringing in the Brackens and the Blackwoods and this whole like skirmish and even Crispy out there in the open fields, like riding around with Alicent's brother. Like we're just seeing new locations now, and it was so needed. It was so necessary
Agreed.
to like open things up.
I have to tell you that I really enjoyed Allison's brother Gwayne solely for the fact that I never get tired of seeing people give Crispy Cole a hard time.
He was great. He was good. And like I think he's already got his eyes on Cole. Like, do you think he suspects something?
I'm not sure if he suspects something or if it's just like the affect of being very highborn.
True, true.
And there's definitely shade to throw because he opened with like, "Well, I get here to find that my father's been sent home."
Oh, I hope we see Otto again, which is words I never thought I would say.
I feel like we definitely will. He can't just fade off into the night like that.
No, we need something for him to do.
I just want to hear him talk shit to Allison's kids again.
Yeah, let's talk about Alicent's kids for a second here. Aegon, I don't, he's awful, right? Like
Yes,
he's
I don't think he could be a worse contender as ruler.
right. But also like what they've done and kind of like remedied with his character, I would like to see happen to more characters. For example, season one, he has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. He's hanging out in the child fighting pits, like bastards of his own, and like he's awful. Like
Yeah.
he's awful. And then in season two, he's trying to give people their sheeps back and, buying rounds for everyone in the pub by the brothel and like cracking jokes with his guards. And in that aspect, they've made him a much more interesting and like human character because not everyone is the same thing all the time. You can't recycle Joffrey Baratheon and
Right.
like it work. Them bringing in more character traits of this kid and like fleshing him out does wonders for the story, and it makes things so much more the tonal shifts, like the highs and lows and peaks and valleys of who people are as characters. But saying that, I feel like they're doing it with Aegon. They started doing it with Aemond this episode because that, yeah,
The
I
brothel
wasn't,
scene.
yeah.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but in a way I feel bad for Aemond at this point because could you imagine having your like bully become your liege lord while they're also still your sibling. Like, what an advantage Aegon has now. Aemon can't really say anything. He can just
No,
like
I
harass
Dracarys,
him.
ma'am,
Yeah.
just burn me alive.
Like the harassment of I'm curious to see how Aemond handles this slight.
That scene was a lot. I was not expecting full frontal nudity,
I
but
mean, it's still Max. Like, if we didn't
yeah,
have male and female nudity in gratuitous amounts, it wouldn't be Max.
this is true. This is true. But like it actually served a purpose though, at least. You know, like this wasn't so he's like at his most vulnerable, right? And with the prostitute that looks, you know, suspiciously like his mother.
Right.
And then Aegon just like opens the curtains and he's kind of just stunned for a second and then he like gets up fully naked in like a power stance. Like, yeah, you're not going to be making fun of me ever again. Like I have no shame. And I was like, "Okay. Okay. So now we're getting more of Aemon's personality and like the way that he's responding to everything that's going on with Aegon." And I'm like, "Oh man, like are we going to have a really strong rivalry between the two brothers?" Which I'm all for it.
Right. Look, we might as well make it sibling v sibling v sibling.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Another thing, so going on like this whole like journey about some of these characters getting more interesting qualities, I would say. I love that they're doing that for some of these people, but like I'm still waiting for Rhaenyra to get like a similar treatment. And same with Misaria and same with Rhaenys. I feel like I'm waiting.
Right. It's I feel like we're in like a lot of a build-up phase to what's coming. We're setting
Yeah.
all these pieces out on the board now, and things are starting to pick up speed quickly. Especially like we're headed towards the Dance of Dragons.
Do you want to hear my loony theory based on nothing at all that like just a gut feeling?
Absolutely.
I'm like 99% sure that Masaria is going to get a dragon.
Okay. Okay.
Just this is purely based on just some of the shots from this season because in the previous episode we have a character who is new and like there's a scene, it's almost like a meaningless scene too, where he's out on the beach collecting things and looks up and there's, you know, majestic dragon flying overhead. And we're getting to see like characters where it's like, oh, is this person gonna get a dragon? Is this person gonna get a dragon? And they did the same thing with Massaria, where she's overlooking, you know, like the sea on Dragonstone at Laenor's dragon. And I'm like, oh, okay, this feels like a pattern. And I mean, in the books, she doesn't get a dragon, but like it kind of feels like they're running out of things for her to do. And maybe I'm just like hoping this into
Do you
existence.
think it could
And
be sea smoke that she gets?
I don't know. I don't think so. If she gets a dragon, I think she's going to get one of the other unclaimed dragons. But in the books, there's a character who has no Targaryen blood, but they kind of just bro down and become friends with the dragon. So there's no like Targaryen bond or anything like that. And they get a dragon purely based on like their friendship with it,
Okay.
I guess you could say. But I mean, what else are they going to do with Massaria? Why are they spending any time with her? They can't just keep having her orchestrate these super secret meetings in King's Landing. Like, I think we've reached the maximum limit for that plot line to be
Viable.
like repeated.
Right.
Yeah.
You know who I'm wondering why they don't have a dragon yet is Baela. Not Baela, sorry. Why
Reyna.
Rhaenyra doesn't have a dragon yet. Is there like a reason for this? Is it just because she's young and they want adult dragon riders? Is it there aren't enough dragons to go around, even though it seems like there definitely are? What is it specifically about her that keeps her from getting a dragon when everyone else in her family around her has one? Or is it just for the plot?
Yeah, like I think if this season goes in the direction that I think it's going to go, I think by like episode 8, you're gonna see like anybody who can ride a dragon is gonna have a dragon.
Okay.
I think that's going to be part of the climax to this season, hopefully. I guess maybe I'm guessing that because they dropped it down to 8 episodes, which means they're really like needing more of the budget. Like they need to spread it out in a more efficient way. So
Right.
8 episodes. So that makes me think that like we're going to see a lot of dragon stuff this season based on them trying to like tighten things up so that they can use that budget money for like FX and
Right.
stuff like that.
There's a lot of open loose ends right now. We've had like multiple points along, let's say, like the last 5 episodes between season 1 and 2, where we have all these like open moments that those loose ends have not been tied up. Like we had Daemon out searching for other dragons, but nothing really ever came of that. So
Yeah.
we have kids going off to the Eyrie with their dragons, and I'm curious to see how like some of these loose ends are going to get tied up in this season. I hope they're not just like fall off the cliff points where they're just done.
That would be really frustrating. And I think at this point in the 3rd episode, you know what I'm really ready to leave behind and not have to deal with
Ooh,
anymore?
what?
Is this will they or won't they find peace or war? Can we walk this back? Like maybe we can find peace. Like I think
I think we all
like
know it's going to war.
right. And that's another reason why I'm thinking maybe Misaria gets a dragon because really what was the point of Rhaenyra meeting with Alicent? It was a little contrived. Like and that's not so much a problem for me, but the fact that this scene needed to happen, I guess, was to show, like, oh, well, Alicent interpreted Viserys wrong and oops. But is it possible that that scene was like they needed something for Masaria to do because now she's done 2 things for Rhaenyra. She saved her and warned her about Sir Arik,
Yeah.
and she's orchestrated this, like secret meeting. And so, is it possible that like she will be rewarded? And then on top of that, it seems like this season deals a lot with like the theme of it really sucks to be a woman in this world.
Right.
And no matter like how much power you have or you think you have, like it's still not going to be enough to like hashtag smash the patriarchy or whatever. It might actually be, and I know this is probably kind of controversial because people love nettles, but it might be possible that this meeting with Alicent and Rhaenyra is going to be a way to bring Rhaenyra and Misaria together. And now instead of it just being like, see how awful this world is for women, maybe it could be like, how do we remedy that? Now we've got 2 women who both have like these shared experiences. They were both with Daemon. What if like we get some type of plot line where it's like, yeah, things suck, but like how about empowerment? Like what if we do that? And it might actually be really fun for the character of Rhaenyra to give her something to do other than just be really intense and, second guessing whether or not she wants people to die.
Right. That would be interesting if it went that way. I guess like a lot of Masaria's character to me comes across as like subtle support for why Rhaenyra would be the better monarch in the situation because Misaria is very invested in the lives of the small folk and how the small folk are harmed by the games that the highborn monarchs play.
That as a storyline, way more interesting than her being like kind of a spy, because like the spying isn't really spying.
It's not. It's not. It's not.
And she can't, like, what is she gonna do on Dragonstone? Like, like you gotta have eyes and ears out there and a network. She can't really run stuff from Dragonstone. So, like, why is she there? Why hasn't she left yet? Hopefully, this means we're gonna have two female characters actually, like, brought together to do something cool.
It also crossed my mind that Misaria might be considered for the Master of Whispers position for Rhaenyra.
I think that is a very likely, very likely. But then they gotta kick her back out into the streets. And,
Yeah,
like,
I think that I don't want to say her value, but where she would be the strongest as Master of Whispers is if Rhaenyra were to actually take the throne.
true. Yeah, I mean they could be kind of like holding her to the side for a plot line like that.
Can I say something about a Master of Whispers real quick? Girl, Larys is not a Master of Whispers. He's a master of manipulation. Because
Mhm.
I don't believe for a second that he's hearing anything on the streets. He's just making things up as he goes.
You might be right.
Because if he's hearing anything, it's from Alicent. So he's just getting like, I just don't see him as having a network of spies. I see him as having a mind that is very well suited for manipulation, and Aegon's kind of an easy target due to his insecurities. So the way he was
Oh, for
able to
sure.
like stride in and be like, this is also your mom can rule in your stead was the
Mhm.
perfect thing to do. And it does kind of like speak to the relationship that Alicent has with her children. I think the only person who might be a worse parent that's like in the forefront is Daemon.
Yeah. Damon should not have children.
Girl, not at all. But it does leave me curious as to this growing resentment that Aegon has for Alicent and how that's going to play out.
Yeah. I feel bad for the Alicent and Rhaenyra characters because at this point I'm not really drawn into either of their storylines, and it's not nothing against like the actors or anything like that. I just feel like they haven't been written as like dynamically as some of the other characters. Like look at Otto, man. Like
That's a good point to make.
that scene last week where he's just like so over these idiots. We don't like Otto. He's awful. He's terrible. But in that moment, it's like, yeah, relatable.
Relatable. Can't blame you there, bud.
We're getting a lot of cool stuff, but then do you know it was probably the best scene yet of Rainey's?
Hmm.
Well, she doesn't have any dialogue, but it's just her looking at Damon at the small council meeting when everybody's like, who killed Helena's child?
Yeah, that was a really good scene. That was a really
Yeah,
good scene.
it was like half a second of her like showing off her intuition. And it's like that character has so much potential, but at this point, it's kind of just like they bring Rainey's in to be like the voice of reason instead of like focusing more on her intuition. I feel like they're starting to kind of turn the corner with that, like after that scene, and everybody was kind of speaking amongst themselves. Rhaenyra had left. Rhaenys laid into everyone and put the fear in them. I like to see that, so I'm hoping, that some of these other characters start to get some more like interesting dynamic moments, especially Rhaenyra. Man, like especially Rhaenyra and Alicent, because what are they doing?
Alicent's a very like one note character.
Yeah, and I think Rhaenyra might be a little bit as well, where it's like she loves her kids. She's probably like the most well suited to sit on the throne in terms of like temperament.
Right.
She's very intense, but like I don't know anything about her that doesn't have to do with like the monarchy and like, her as a daughter, mother, sister, child,
Right.
etc.
Yeah, I do see what you're saying about her not having a whole lot going on outside of like the roles that she fills.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like with Rhaenyra, Rhaenys, Alicent, give them something other than just being like mothers and like rulers.
It's a lot of it is like you see them in these standardized roles for women, and then the other identity I think that I see a lot is in just being a Targaryen.
True, that's a really good point. Do you think that there is like a striking difference in the way that they are presented versus someone like Daenerys?
Absolutely. I think there's a huge striking difference. There was so much more put into the dynamics of Daenerys' character.
And I think she had more engaging people to act and have dialogue with, like, what is his name? Oh, Jorah. Like Jorah Mormont. Um, who's her Kingsguard?
Sir Barristan Selmy.
Sir Barristan Selmy, her brother, called Drogo. Like, she has this really rich environment of different people where you get to see the many sides of her.
Yeah,
But with Rhaenyra, it's just like her family.
basically, yes. Yeah, there is a lot larger of a network around Daenerys than there is around Rhaenyra.
Yeah, and I think maybe like if they were to and I think like I'm not trying to like poo-poo on this episode because I think it was probably the best one yet.
Agreed.
I think and what I'm hoping that I'm seeing right now is with her having the chance to have dialogue and share scenes with different types of characters, like Rhaenyra with Rhaenys, Rhaenyra with Misaria. Now we're going to get to see more sides of her as a person. And I think that for me is something that I'm really looking forward to because I think Rhaenyra and so many of these other female characters have so much potential. Like Baela, how refreshing was that just to get to see her cruising around on her dragon?
I love that scene. That was one of my favorite scenes of the episode.
Yeah, like her personality really came out. And then when she's talking to Rhaenyra afterwards, Rhaenyra's like, "Didn't I tell you to stay high?" And she's like, eh.
She was like, I didn't exactly engage them. I just
Yeah,
chased them into some tree cover.
right. Let's get this war going. Like, I want to see, you know what? Like, have Rhaenyra leading and like let's see this war. Let's see what she can do. Let's see how she utilizes all of the people around her. And I mean, I'm real curious to see what happens with Daemon at Harrenhal because at this point, Crispy and company are headed in that direction, I think. Like the Riverlands are in play. That's a huge area that the war effort is like really zeroed in on because they need that land. It's like the buffer. You can't go anywhere unless you've got control of it. Damon, Cole, I feel like it's all leading up to this area.
We see the fight over the Riverlands happen in Game of Thrones too. It's a really important area.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really hoping that like everything that's going on now that we've got, like soldiers on the battlefield and like everything's leading up to this point. I feel like the show is moving in a really good direction, not just like with the storylines, but also with the characters themselves. Yeah, I would like to see more things happen with certain characters, but besides that, the new locations and the new characters. Oh my God, and we didn't even talk about Ulf, the guy in the bar that was like, "I'm a secret Targaryen. I'm here for it."
I had forgotten about him. while we were talking, but I did enjoy his scene a lot. And I'm hoping that we see more of him. And that's why they put so much effort into that scene in particular. Because personally, I thought the way that they actually filmed that scene was one of my favorite of the episode.
It was great. I loved how seamlessly that scene moved from his own like personal storyline and then kind of like just turned the page into Aegon showing up and then like his interaction with the prostitutes and then like this kind of showdown between Aegon and Aemond. Like that was so seamless and it was a really good transition.
I agree completely about it being a really nice transition. This is kind of random and not necessarily attached to the show itself, but I really enjoyed the armor on Aegon and Daemon this episode, and I'm really
Yeah.
hoping that I see imagery from upcoming cons of people who are cosplaying in that.
I'm with you on that. I think bringing in, what is it, Aegon the Conqueror's armor for current King Aegon, that was a nice touch.
Girl, that armor being made of Valyrian steel,
Right?
you
I want to see
know,
it in action. I need
right.
to see it.
I know. Plus, like, if you're really big into Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire, you know how precious that metal becomes later on down the road.
Yeah.
And I want to know what his armor ended up being melted into, because there had to have been like weapons or something that came out of it later in time.
Ooh, yeah. Maybe someone listening will know and they can
Ooh.
drop that in the old comment section. Yeah, so like for me, characters that I'm looking forward to next episode, I really want to see more of Gwayne Hightower.
Agreed.
I'm curious to know if there will be new characters that we haven't really spent time with, like Alice Rivers, the woman that told Damon, "You're gonna die here."
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to more with her. And then mostly, I think Damon's daughters. Rhaena was sent off to, where was it? Pentos?
The Eerie to be good with.
With the dragon eggs.
Right.
Okay.
And then I think they go across the narrow sea from there, right? Isn't that, well, that's the plan, right?
I have to imagine. So like I want to know like what she has in store. And then our two newer characters from last week, Adam and Alan of Hull.
Yeah.
I want to see more of Hugh, the guy who was like, "Oh, the price of chickens, my daughter's sick." That guy.
Yeah, that's another loose end.
So hopefully, like, oh, and more of Ulf, the secret Targaryen guy. So like,
Look at his hair.
look at his hair.
I like how his response to being told that he wasn't that person was, "Do you even know what they look like?"
I mean, he's got a point.
Right? It's interesting because there's already evidence that they're going to change it some from the storyline of Fire and Blood, the book. So I think it's kind of exciting to see like what types of changes they're going to inevitably make and how that will change the trajectory of the story in the show.
True.
I know that there's a lot of people who don't like that, but I find it interesting to see like how they're going to change this even in the small ways.
Yeah, and I'm not, I mean, we've both said it before. We are not in any way really emotionally attached to Fire and Blood. I'm not really butthurt about changes in any way as long as it's entertaining and it makes sense.
Agreed completely.
I wanted to ask you, we've been talking about the dragon seeds a lot, so we've got like these new characters that have Targaryen blood. Are there any of them where like I mean, are there any like shocking revelations that you think would be more interesting than not? Like any theories to like what their plot lines might look like besides just dragon riding abilities?
I am actually really interested in the plot lines of Corlys Velarion's like bastard children.
Mm-hmm.
They are probably some of the most intriguing secondary or tertiary characters that we've seen for me so far.
Yeah, and they just seem like good people.
They seem
I
fun.
like Yeah, yeah. And oh my God, the face card of Adam of Whole. Oh my God.
Yeah.
These are, yeah. Yeah.
I'm actually also very invested in Baela and Rhaenyra's plot lines.
Yes, because it seems like Rhaenyra is really holding back. She doesn't want her sons in the line of danger, but she has no qualms about putting Baela out there scouting, which risky, but also like she seems to be doing a great job at it. So I think that's like a good sign of a leader where they like know what certain people can excel in and then delegate.
Well, I think there's also something to be said about like Rhaenyra sends off the children who aren't actually either age appropriate or able to help fight in this war.
Right. Right.
And I don't
And it
blame her.
makes
I'm
sense.
not saying that that was a bad move. I think it was a good move because she knows, like, with all of this child death that's been happening, that her other children are absolutely going to be targets once this really kicks into high gear.
Yeah, I agree. And it'll be interesting to see like how that comes back around. I do know from like the books kind of how things play out in the end and like her taking these measures now. It definitely plays out in a way where it was like, yeah, all right, that was smart move. Well played. But I don't know. I'm ready to spend more time outside of, the Red Keep and Dragonstone and Driftmark and get like into the lives of some of these less noble characters. I think their inclusion in the story has made this season much more fun, much more engaging, much more interesting, and I'm ready for next week.
Me too.
All right. Thanks for joining us this week. Let us know if you agree, disagree, if you've got any ideas on what Massaria, what her plotline might look like moving forward. Are we going to get someone else that takes over the role of Nettles? How are you feeling about the female characters versus some of the male characters? All that stuff. Leave a comment below, like and subscribe. That really helps other people find this video and we will see you back next week.